Roughly 1 in 7 Gen Z credit card borrowers have maxed out their credit cards. That is incredible. Let's talk about all the generations and their spending habits. My guest has more than 30 years of experience in financial services. She's an enrolled agent, tax-saving expert, and CEO at Decision Financial Services. It's Monika Hengesbach joining us on News Talk 710 KURV. So what's the deal with Gen Z and spending?
I don't know if it's necessarily the spending is the big problem. They just started out of the gate encumbered with debt. They have student loan debt that's rising, and it's outpacing the wages that they can earn as newly graduates. They have inflation that's hindering them, rising rents. So it's making it more difficult for them to have any disposable income, so they're turning towards their credit cards.
Wow, and it's just a lack of disposable income. Interesting. And so they're using the credit card to bridge the gaps, but they don't have any income to pay the bill either? So they're just digging a hole for themselves, would you say?
Yes, they are. They're digging a hole for themselves, and I think that comes to the reason that they're not educated, and I say that lightly. I don't mean to sound that they're not smart enough, but I feel that they don't have a solid foundation in managing their own finances.
Well, let's talk about that. What would you say is what would it take to create a solid foundation for the average person to understand the dynamics of credit cards and how to manage their spending and their finances?
Truthfully, I think anyone out there, whether you're going to college, not going to college, don't plan to work, should take a basic accounting course. That gives you a great foundation on how to manage your own finances. There are a tremendous amount of apps out there, and of course Gen Zs are very technically inclined. They could start using those apps. One of them is You Need a Budget, is one of them that I recently looked at. I think that would be a great starting point for anybody out there, really, is to get a hold and actually know how much they're spending.
Is there a magic bullet ratio of how much you should squirrel away? I've heard of different things, like I think, was it like a 50-30-20 plan, something like that. I have a friend of mine who's trying to get out of debt recently, and I think it's 50-30-20. There's some like ratio trendy TikTok plan that they're using.
Well, I don't really subscribe to what TikTokers are saying out there, because I've listened to their tax advice, and it's quite alarming.
We should talk about that too. What the worst advice you've heard of from the internet?
My gosh, it's awful. I don't think there's a magic bullet, because everybody's income situation is different. I think what they need to do is they need to become more realistic about how they're spending their money. Recent news reports have talked about, the biggest conversation is that $18 Big Mac meal, right? And everyone's excited that Costco's keeping their $1.50 hot dog meal. It's just really where we're spending the money realistically, and do we need to spend our money that way? And then we can save money to put down and pay off our debt.
What about joining us on 710 KURV, CEO at Decision Financial Services is Monika Hengesbach, joining us right now. We're talking about credit card debt and your finances. And is it just the environment that we're in, right? Like the time period that we're in? We were talking about alternate universes and stuff. Is it part of the multiverse that we're just with all this inflation, and are we just in a bad time period right now for saving?
I think we've been in a bad time period for savings for quite some time, and we haven't fixed the underlying problem. Even older generations are having difficulty trying to squirrel away enough money to save for retirement. That's the big conversation now that a lot of my clients are having. So I think it's a combination: inflation, rising interest rates, cost of living. It's just all starting to get out of reach.
And I'm going to go back to this question because I'm dying to know what you've heard. But on social media, there are a lot of people that would describe themselves as financial experts, and and they use this term very, very loosely. Like they have no accreditation, there's no certificates that they've got to flaunt. They're just, hey, I'm just a guy, and I'm trying to help people save money. What is the worst advice that you've heard?
Oh, Lord. The worst advice I've heard is searching for those 0% credit cards and transferring your balance. I mean, yes, it's good advice if you're disciplined enough. It's bad advice if you're not. And what I've seen people do is they transfer based upon this wisdom that people are putting out there. They transfer their money to the 0% interest cards, but then they continue charging on all these other cards. And they don't pay off that card, and then you balloon because now your debt to income ratio is so out of whack that your interest rates are so high, and they're finding themselves even in a worse position than they are. Everyone can't be put in the same box. You've got to go to somebody who's willing to listen to exactly where you are and what tools are geared just for your situation that can help you. So this advice that you can get off the internet doesn't work for everybody.
What would you say is like a starter set? Somebody fresh out of high school, and they're flirting with the idea of getting a steady job. What would you give to somebody? Because we have a lot of new graduates out right now. What advice would you give to them?
I would think that once I would stay at home, truthfully. I mean, that's where my 22-year-old is right now, is graduated from college and is back at home because the wages that she's earning aren't helping her afford to buy a home. And so she's trying to squirrel away enough money so she can then land on her feet. But if you're just going out there, what I would really do is once you've gotten your offer letter, you know exactly what your pay is going to be, create that financial plan and budget and stick to it. See how much money you're making in your take-home pay. You don't know how many kids have come in my office and they were shocked that they weren't getting all their money back that was withheld from their paycheck. But it's see what your take-home pay is and see what that take-home pay and how much goes towards all of your other living costs, and then how much you have left over to save or pay down debt.
What's interesting too? We're speaking with CEO at Decision Financial Services, Monika Hengesbach, our guest on 710 KURV. What's interesting too is, I guess, the mindset. I don't know if this is something that's universal for all the different generations, as we talk from Gen Z to baby boomers, but there's and I've seen this on social media, where millennials and Gen Z kind of go through this Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde set of phases for their finances, where it's, man, I really need to save money, and they'll save for like a week or two, and then suddenly, like, YOLO, you only live once, I gotta go out and I gotta go to do the thing, I gotta take the trip, I gotta eat at the fancy restaurant, I gotta do the thing. Why this can't be a healthy type of spending, I know, but is it just those generations that are like that? Do you see that in the baby boomers and Gen Xers?
Oh my goodness. Competing with the Joneses has been going on for generations. And that's where we really need to stop. We need to be able just to, and I know this is hard, but to humble ourselves and live within our means. We need to be mindful of our spending and our lifestyle habits. Just because our neighbor or our friends are able to pay for a $400 haircut or take that trip doesn't mean that we have to too. And so I think if we can finally get to being comfortable with where we are financially, then I believe that our spending habits are going to change. But the competing with the Joneses has been going on for generations, and that's really what's getting us into trouble.
Tell us about some of the good work you all put in at Decision Financial Services.
So what we do is we're a tax strategy firm. So we help take clients that are looking at their overall taxes as a whole and design a plan for them that could help lower their taxes and afford them the opportunity to save money towards retirement and other things, and use that money as a tax strategy to lower your taxes.
Where can we find more information?
You can check me out on my website. It's decisionfinancial.com. There's a lot of valuable information out there, and you can also always reach out directly to me, which is at Monika, Monika, at decisionfinancial.com.
Hey, thanks a lot for spending some time with us today. That's Monika Hengesbach, CEO at Decision Financial Services, joining us on News Talk 710 KURV.